Versatile Mage. Chapter 136 I Will Take Responsibility. The sound of the mirror breaking cleared up Tang Yu's scrambled mind a little. She pushed Mo Fan away before retreating to the very corner of the car. She looked like a scared cat as she curled up there. As Mo Fan saw her forcefully get her mind together, he couldn't help but sigh. One half of his heart was frustrated, and the other half was extremely frustrated. On a curvy road along the lonely mountain, a taxi was speeding along. Inside was a driver whose heart had completely crumbled, and a young man and grown woman whose hearts were currently being tested. Out of respect and consideration, Mo Fan also began to shift away from Tang Yu. His eyes gazed out the window, acting as though what had just happened had not occurred at all. Not too long after, a fragrance suddenly invaded his nose. Mo Fan could feel the seat next to him slowly sink. He turned his head around, only to realize that Tang Yu, who had just been like a scared kitten, had turned into a fierce cat bearing fangs and claws as she once again pounced at him. Her captivating small red lips kissed him, and her forelimbs were like the tentacles of an octopus as she tightly hugged him, a hug that seemed like it would never end. Mo Fan didn't know how to respond to this. Suddenly, she pushed him away once again as she retreated to the other side. Watching her as her mood swung so wildly, Mo Fan felt terrible for her. Heavens, just kill me. Stop tormenting a pure and innocent boy like me. It's not like I won't take responsibility. You dare to give me this kind of delight, and then just let it walk away. Originally, I could have been a proper gentleman, but now I am completely confused. This road was even more tormenting than when they were charging into the monster-infested city area. Either way, Mo Fan felt like he was being constantly tempted by a witch. He was just a young, handsome boy whose heart was now covered in wounds. Anyhow, they finally reached the city and bought the medicine for suppressing the symptoms. The woman of his dreams was filled with shame as she ran away, leaving behind a Mo Fan whose chaotic heart was still billowing as he stood in an unfamiliar part of the city, completely perplexed. After he had finally regained his senses, Mo Fan wanted to take a stroll around the city of Hangzhou. However, he quickly received a threatening text message. If you dare to tell anyone about this, I will castrate you. I actually will take responsibility, he texted back. A judge of the magic courts is allowed 2 chances to kill. Do you want me to use one of them on you? The clear threat had been made through the texts. He could feel Tang Yu's killing intent when she sent the message. I am a man of virtue. Since we're at it, could I inquire why you're in Hangzhou right now? Coincidentally, I live in Hangzhou as well. I haven't seen you since the fall of Bo City. Do you want to grab a coffee together? In an apartment in West Hangzhou, the flush-cheeked Tang Yu held onto her mobile. As she saw the most recent message, she wanted to give herself some respect by acting like he was a stranger. Yet she couldn't help but giggle a little. Humph, how could someone who couldn't use intermediate magic without the use of a star atlas possibly take responsibility? There are even advanced magicians who would stand in line for me. After strolling around Hangzhou, Mo Fan took a bus directly to Shanghai. To be fair, it couldn't even be called the outskirts of Hangzhou. Either way, it took a little more than an hour to get back to Shanghai using the metro, and roughly another hour using a train to get home. Mo Fan's original plan was to meditate at home for 2 months, and then see if he could rely on his outstanding ability as an intermediate mage to make the Jewel Institute recruit him. Let's go back home and think carefully through this. The priority was to learn how to control the Star Atlas. If he relied on a Star Atlas book to cast intermediate magic, he'd be far too slow. Furthermore, if he continued using the Star Atlas books, then the stars most likely wouldn't see him as their father anymore. Either way, going to university was essentially using most of the time to control the Atlas. He might as well stay home and meditate, and learn the skill before stepping into the institution. In one aspect, he had to show off. For someone like him who enjoyed showing off, there would be no way to do that if he didn't have any hidden power. On the other hand, he'd have even more time to interact with new things. I just don't know anything about things like the curse element. Who knows, maybe there'll be a day where I die like the 4 people from the Dongfang family, completely clueless. Furthermore, it's not like I won't have to cultivate after I get to university. I'll awaken a 3rd element, and then I'll have to spend even more time on top of that. Right, I've made my decision. I'll cultivate for a year and then charge my way into Dual Institute. Tang Yu was indeed very sincere. Originally, Mo Fan thought that because of the moment of passion in the car, she would never again look at him. Unexpectedly, she still sent him a message to go to the Magic Association of Shanghai to awaken, with someone there to guide him. The Magic Association of Shanghai was also known as the Dongfang Magic Association. This Dongfang Magic Association had nothing to do with the Dongfang family, other than the fact that the Magic Association was located in the Oriental Pearl Tower. When Mo Fan passed through the skyscrapers that pierced the heavens like treasured swords in Lujiazui, he arrived at the Oriental Pearl Tower. His emotions were rather complex. In the world he was born in, the Oriental Pearl Tower was the symbol of Shanghai, and also a place for tourism. In this place, it was actually the headquarters of the Magic Association. The Magic Association had always been the most authoritative magic organization in this world, recruiting most of the young and powerful magicians. As long as you were a magician, you would have to follow the rules drawn up by them. The magicians' conventions had a few clear regulations. 1. No magician was allowed to use a destructive magic above the advanced level within the city, and magic beneath the advanced level could not be used without proper reasons. 2. Never use magic against commoners. Doing so would result in a punishment equal to killing someone. 3. Magicians were allowed to have duels, and injuring someone in them was fine. If death occurred, punishment would be determined by the magic court. The Magic Association was equivalent to a magician's police force and legal system. The magicians' conventions were something that all magicians in the world had to comply with. Naturally, the ones who drew up these laws were also the lawmakers and the enforcers. In the exchanges between magicians, and their transactions, interactions, and cultivations, the Magic Association held the highest level of authority. Normally, only the most outstanding young magicians would be recruited into the Magic Association. Within the Magic Association, there was also a magic court. The magic court was extremely secretive and mysterious. It was reported that the magic court consisted of people whose combat powers were all off the charts. Mo Fan only found out about this later on the internet. If Chao He hadn't used all kinds of dirty tricks back then he most likely would not have been a true foe for Tang Yu. Recalling the destructive power of the Fierce Fist, 9 Palace, he could still feel lingering fear in his heart. Tang Yu looked like she was only in her 20s, and she was already in possession of such great combat power. It seemed this was the very standard of the magic court, and clearly demonstrated that freaks existed within the magic court. Chapter End. Versatile Mage. Chapter 137 The Second Awakening. According to Tang Yu, Mo Fan had come to the most renowned magic association in the nation. He could already feel a magnificent aura streaming across his face while he was still standing out in the square. This was at a completely different level than the Magicians' Association in Bo City. The passing people on the stairs were dressed no differently than normal citizens, but judging by their auras, all of them were most definitely magicians. Some were weaker, some were about the same level as Mo Fan himself, but there were also quite a few magicians that Mo Fan wasn't able to sense. If he couldn't even feel the magic aura of those magicians, it was without a doubt because they were at a much higher level than he was. This was undoubtedly the most amazing magic association in the nation. Intermediate magicians in Bo City were an existence that could be considered at the peak, while here, they could be seen as, oh, those people were just here for sightseeing. They weren't magicians. That's probably why I couldn't feel them. Right. The Oriental Pearl Tower was open to the public. Visitors had paths that were specifically arranged for sightseeing. Thus it was only natural for magicians like Mo Fan to walk along the magician's path instead. After passing through an exhibition hall filled with magical advances and items of historical significance, Mo Fan took the elevator which skyrocketed him 100 meters upwards. His current floor was called the lower sphere, and was where the majority of the magicians gathered. Although it was a sightseeing floor as well, its main purpose was to service magicians from all corners of the country. After exiting the elevator, the first thing that came into his sight was a majestic hall. The structure itself was a spherical building over 50 meters in diameter. However, after examining the painting on the curved dome that had a Western Renaissance style to it, he could feel a secretive and mysterious magic assailing him. The receptionist, wearing a white cheapao with cloud designs, asked him with a polite smile, "Is there anything I can help you with, Mr. Magician? I'm here for awakening. Someone already has booked an appointment for me." Mo Fan replied, his eyes unconsciously staring at the receptionist's beautiful long legs. Tusk, just as expected of a grand city, even the receptionists are extremely beautiful. "Let me check it for you. May I please have your name?" Mo Fan. "Okay. Mr. Mo Fan, do you wish to look around, or do you wish to head to the awakening room straight away?" The receptionist asked with another smile. "Let's go straight to the awakening room." Between sightseeing and awakening, Mo Fan cared more for his awakening. After Mo Fan clearly understood the importance of having yet another element. As Mo Fan passed through the main lobby, he noticed a relatively interesting fact. There were many one-to-one counters. Some magicians were able to enjoy loan service by a receptionist, while the majority of the magicians were seated on the comfortable chairs in the hall. They looked like they were retail investors as they watched the giant screen, searching for the information they wanted. The screen will announce some bounties, as well as weekly resources issued by the Magicians Association. Those who want them can apply for them. The receptionist seemed to know it was Mo Fan's first time here, and explained this in a friendly manner. "What about the one-to-one service?" Mo Fan asked. "They either paid a large sum for this special service, or have reached the level of an intermediate magician. All intermediate magicians automatically will have one-on-one service. The employees will do a price estimation if they are looking to trade items, as well as methods for selling them. Furthermore, they will also properly explain to the magician information regarding any suitable bounties. Any matters which need to be followed closely or applied will be done on your behalf. This saves time and removes many tedious procedures. But of course, there are also employees who are specialized to get information which you normally cannot." The thoughtful receptionist explained concisely. "So that's how it works." Mo Fan nodded. "Everybody thirsts for special privileges, but those who are privileged are in the minority, and I am in the minority." Mo Fan was brought to a beautiful spherical room. The room was filled with countless amounts of awakening balls, causing those who saw them to feel dizzy. "Mr. Guo, the person who is here for awakening has arrived." After the girl dressed in cheapao arrived here, she hesitated a moment before she spoke. "Oh, I know, instruct him to sit there." The man called Mr. Guo looked as if he was busy as he replied in a neutral monotone. Then I shall take my leave." The receptionist peeked at Mr. Guo before her face displayed some disappointment. Mo Fan followed Mr. Guo's instruction as he sat down to the side and waited. At this moment, he was a little excited. It was just like his first awakening held at the school's practice grounds. On the other side of the room, the man named Mr. Guo hadn't even looked at Mo Fan once as he carelessly walked into another room. The room was dim. Mr. Guo looked at the young woman who was his apprentice and asked, "Xiao Mian, is the awakening stone ready? Which element's guiding stone should I use?" The apprentice named Xiao Mian inquired. "Let me see." Guo Liu walked up to the door and looked at Mo Fan from a distance. He didn't bother asking Mo Fan as he showed his impatience. "Lightning element. You're not going to ask?" Xiao Mian questioned him. "I hate these kind incompetent second generations." His age should be around 17 or 18, yet he still came here for awakening with the belief he could use money to awaken the lightning element. If my awakening house wasn't in need of money to bring in new stock, I wouldn't even bother wasting awakening stones on these people, Guo Liu replied. How much did you charge for the service, master? Xiao Mian asked weakly. 100,000 yuan. The probability of awakening the lightning element is just slightly higher compared to normal circumstances, Guo Liu replied. Xiao Mian was shocked after hearing his reply. 100,000 for just increasing the probability of awakening a lightning element for a person, master is ruthless. Xiao Mian didn't say much as she obediently put the lightning element guiding stone around the giant awakening stone. This was the Magicians Association's largest awakening house. The awakening stones they used were of the best quality. Normally the fees were relatively high, but it was a free service if it was a special case, such as a recommendation from extraordinary people. Come here, kid. I must tell you in advance, what you awaken is up to the heavens and your talent. Even using an elemental guiding stone, the success rate is only raised by a little. If you awaken the light element, water element, or whatever element, don't blame me. Guo Liu walked up to Mo Fan with the appearance of having a bad day. I got it. Can we begin? Mo Fan asked. You may go in, we won't disturb you during the process of awakening. The girl named Xiao Mian answered Mo Fan, still not knowing why they were being unfriendly to him. Chapter N. Versatile Mage. Chapter 138 Awakening the Shadow Element. Mo Fan walked to the awakening room, which was completely lit up by luminous stones. As he reached the location of the awakening stone, he noticed many lustrous purple pearls surrounding the giant awakening stone. Mo Fan was confused when he sensed that the pearls were clearly emitting the aura of the lightning element. I want to awaken the dark element. How come the lightning guiding stone is placed here? Mo Fan asked as Guo Liu was about to leave and close the door. Guo Liu was currently pondering how to remove the impurities from those precious guiding stones. He really didn't want to waste another second with this second generation. Without even bothering to ask, he said to the female apprentice, he wants the dark element. Then just give him the dark element. Oh, Xiao Mian obediently nodded and immediately swapped to the dark guiding stone. Guo Liu didn't even bother looking back as he focused once more on the difficult task of his own research. Before he began, he muttered, you want to awaken the dark element on your first awakening. You're expecting too much. Whatever. The lightning guiding stone and the dark guiding stone's price tags aren't too far apart. After swapping to the dark guiding stone, Mo Fan was locked inside the awakening room. The awakening stone felt familiar, but there was a clear difference from the mass-produced cheap ones used at his school. Awakening stones were restricted items. You had to register every time one was used. The Magic Association controlled the awakening stones, dispatching them to schools, the military, hunters' unions, or other appointed organizations. Half of the high school tuition fees were actually used to purchase the awakening stones. Although the even more expensive guiding stones could be bought, high schools and universities had no reason to provide something so costly for their students. Mo Fan wasn't sure if he would succeed either. Looking at the black elemental pebbles covering the dark guiding stone, his heart couldn't help but beat faster. He closed his eyes and slowly placed his palm on top of the cold awakening stone. He felt uneasy, similar to a virgin boy touching his girlfriend's chest for the very first time. When the glossy, cold awakening stone sensed the warmth from his palm, it immediately began to react. From the very center of the stone, a light blossomed. It was very similar to his first awakening. With his eyes closed, Mo Fan could feel a bizarre energy flowing through the blood vessels in his body, and in a flash, it all poured into his spiritual universe. It was as if a new life was being birthed somewhere in the chaotic field of his spiritual universe. It was changing his spiritual space, slowly forming a territory that belonged to itself. The motes of energy were as tiny as dust, carefully tiptoeing into this territory with the intention of claiming it. They wanted to own a much larger expanse. The energy wasn't as fierce and overbearing as the lightning element, nor as active and inciting as the fire element. Instead, the motes displayed a calm, cool nature that other elements didn't have, like they were peeking around with ideas of their own. What is this? Mo Fan was momentarily unable to determine what it was. From its color, it seemed this element was merging with his spiritual universe. Dark color, yes, this was dark. Did darkness have a color and its own luster? The truth was, Mo Fan's dark stardust had its own characteristics and its own faint glow. If he hadn't carefully tried to feel it, it would have been easy to overlook its existence. Yet, the motes shone with a dark stardust radiance. The guidance was successful. Tang Yu had said that Guo Liu's awakening stones were renowned across the country, with far higher success rates than what schools could offer. Who would have thought it would really work? Shadow element. So this was the shadow element. Mysterious, crafty, and dangerous. Good. With the shadow element in my possession, I'll be able to escape through the shadows like Tang Yu. The usage of the spell is one thing, but what it can do is extraordinarily cool. In a university filled with romance, how could he possibly get everyone's attention, distinguish himself above the rest, and capture the hearts of girls and teachers without the incredibly cool shadow element? Cough. Ahem. Forget it. Under his circumstances, where he had two violent magical elements, obtaining a spell capable of quick relocation was extremely important. Perhaps the wind element was a good choice, but to Mo Fan, wind lacked that mysterious feeling and potential for control. Now, he had finally awakened the shadow element. Once he completed the primary spell, escaping shadows, he wouldn't need to go to such effort to sneakily peek at Xinxia. Oh, he meant, he could fight magical beasts without restraint. Ha ha ha. 3 elements in my hands. Mo Fan was completely excited and about to retract his hands when suddenly a new sensation was transmitted from the awakening stone like lightning, hitting him so fast he didn't have time to react. Mo Fan trembled. Before he could regain his senses, a mysterious new power flowed into his palms. Just like the shadow element, it quickly melted into his blood vessels, opening yet another whole new world within his spiritual universe. My God! At this moment, Mo Fan was unable to speak. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. Recalling his first awakening, the lightning element had come first, followed immediately by the fire element, not even giving him a moment to wonder about it. Now, the same thing had happened again. After his third element was awakened, yet another energy had charged into his spiritual universe. It didn't even give him time to properly rejoice over the shadow element before sending him to an even higher level of excitement. This was like a father about to hug his long-lost son, only to discover, it was a buy one, get one free. One hit, 2 sounds. Shit, there was no way to describe it. He was happy beyond reason. A 4th element. I have 4 elements. Other people at the intermediate level would only possess 2 elements. It seemed they had to reach above the advanced stage before awakening a 4th element. Yet Mo Fan had only just stepped into intermediate, and he had directly awakened a 4th element. This was against the rules of heaven. Calm down, calm down. Shit, I can't calm down. Mo Fan was so excited he felt like he was going to explode. Controlling the emotions surging within him, he finally turned his attention toward the color of the 4th element. What did I awaken this time? At this moment, Mo Fan's mood was like he had won the lottery. Whether it was a sports lottery or a money lottery wasn't important. The prize pool was on another level. What is this? Mo Fan blurted out when he finally found the 4th stardust in his spiritual universe. The color of this stardust. Chapter End. Versatile Mage. Chapter 139. The 4th element. It seemed like there was no color to it. After Mo Fan carefully examined it, he realized that this element actually had no color whatsoever. It was transparent. The reason why he could see it was because he was able to sense the outline of its stardust within the chaotic area. However, it was very close to being invisible. If it was to be described with a color, then it would be the radiance it occasionally emitted, the color of the moon. What element was this? Mo Fan was momentarily unable to make a determination. Are you done? The apprentice, Xiao Mian, opened the door without permission. She saw that Mo Fan had finished awakening a long time ago, thus she began to pout. If you're done, come out. There's going to be a magician coming here to awaken at the recommendation of the magic court. Please don't, eh? How come the element you awakened is colorless? The young apprentice Xiao Mian was surprised as she looked at the awakening stone. On the other side of the room, Guo Liu immediately stood up as he heard his apprentice's astonishment. He ran over to the awakening room and peeked inside. When he discovered the awakening stone didn't have any color, yet there was an occasional flicker of moonlight, his face was filled with shock. What kind of luck does this second generation have? He actually awakened the summoning element. The vast majority of people would only awaken a classical element as their first element. Those who awakened white magic, black magic, or dimensional magic could be considered as being favored by the heavens. After all, the first awakening's element was the major cultivation. Elements of major cultivation provided magicians an increased amount of time to cultivate and practice, making them far more proficient compared to those with a secondary or minor cultivation element. Guo Liu originally thought that if this person awakened a lightning element, he would go back home with honor in his hands. Who would have thought that he would have changed to dark element at the last second, and while that failed, he got a summoning element out of it. According to the rules, the first awakening being a classical element was the most common. The next most likely would be either black magic or white magic, and the least probable would be dimensional magic. Magicians with a summoning ability for their first element would enjoy unlimited benefits from major powers as long as they were willing to accept. Their rarity and value were far too high. This is the summoning element. Humph, kid, the 100,000 RMB your family spent on you sure was worth it. The corner of Guo Liu's mouth twitched as he spoke to the dumbstruck Mo Fan. Mo Fan gasped as he looked at Guo Liu with an unconvinced face. Summoning element. It was actually the summoning element. Even today, Mo Fan could not forget the amazing scene of Chief Zhangkong's subordinate calling the skyhawks flying through the sky of Bo City. That seemed to be the summoning element. He had always imagined himself one day mounting an awesome beast and landing in the streets. Who would have thought that he was now unexpectedly closer to that dream? This happiness came far too suddenly. If Tang Yu were here, Mo Fan would endure the danger and hug her before giving her a couple of kisses. Speaking of which, if he told that old scoundrel Mu Juoyan about awakening the shadow and summoning elements, would he package his beautiful Mu Ningzu and present her to him? That seemed equally possible. Where else would you find a son-in-law with 4 elements? All right. Since you're done awakening, leave. I am busy. At the end of the day, Guo Liu was a busy person, so he began to wave Mo Fan away. Oh, thank you. Mo Fan only wanted to find a place to calm his state of mind. Even if you awakened a special element, if you don't put effort into your training, it'll still be useless. Furthermore, you're already relatively old. You're much slower than other people, so there is nothing to be excited about, Guo Liu said. As Mo Fan heard this, he felt as if cold water was poured over him. He didn't understand why Guo Liu would say he was old. According to Tang Yu, being able to reach the intermediate level at his age would still be considered incredibly impressive even in Shanghai. Could it be that Guo Liu's scope of people was even higher? Alright, the city of demons was the city of demons, after all. There were many strong people here, and even intermediate magicians couldn't be considered anything special. Mo Fan didn't say anything else and immediately left. As he walked out, the receptionist girl in her white qipao guided another fat youth who looked relatively old into the room. Mo Fan didn't care as he left excitedly. As Guo Liu saw this fatty, his face immediately broke into a smile. He greeted him and ordered Xiao Mian next to him to make tea. Oh, you must be the intermediate magician that Tang Yu recommended. Your name was Mo Fan, right? The fatty's face was blank. He pointed at his wrinkled nose and said, My name is Yang Dahai. The youth who just left was Mo Fan, the receptionist quickly explained. The jaws of both Master Guo Liu and apprentice Xiao Mian dropped as they glanced at each other. The expressions on their faces couldn't be described with just a couple of words. After a moment, the apprentice finally regained her senses and weakly said, Master, did we make a mistake? Guo Liu's face was stiff as he nodded. It seems like it. Then he was actually awakening his second element, Xiao Mian said. As expected of the ancient magic court, producing such a monster. An intermediate mage that young, awakening the summoning element on his second awakening. I, Guo Liu, am thoroughly defeated. Guo Liu let out a long sigh. The receptionist didn't know what was going on between the master and the apprentice, so she simply went back to the hall. The fatty called Yang Dahai was also sitting there, completely confused about the situation. Are you the kid from the Yang family that wants to awaken the lightning element? Guo Liu asked as he glanced at the fatty. That would be me, Yang Dahai replied, shaking the fat around his body. Xiao Mian, bring him to the awakening room. Master, didn't you tell me to go make tea? Make what? Don't waste my good tea, Guo Liu replied as he left to do his own work. Yang Dahai was completely dumbstruck. How come the happy and sincere awakening master suddenly looked as though I owed him 500,000 RMB? Did daddy give him too little money? Chapter end. Versatile Mage. Chapter 140 Cultivating 4 Elements Together. After returning home, Mo Fan saw Xingxia sitting peacefully on the small balcony, her eyes closed in diligent meditation. She planned on participating in the Magic High School exams in the coming year, so she still needed to learn quite a few things. Mo Fan wanted to share the happiness in his heart, but seeing her earnest and dignified appearance, he chose not to disturb her. Thinking carefully, he decided not to tell her yet. When the time came, he would simply give her another big surprise. It was afternoon. The bright and beautiful sunlight was like a soft, colorful muslin draped over Xingxia's delicate body. She sat there with an elegance that seemed almost unreal, her tender lips slightly parted, like a beautiful girl from a dream. It seemed she had benefited greatly from cultivating. Normally, she regarded everything lightly, but today she appeared unusually spirited. Mo Fan stood quietly to the side, watching her. Her dark black hair cascaded around her flawless features. Xingxia not only had a perfectly oval-shaped face, but her cheeks also filled out charmingly when she lightly bit her lips. With her beguiling eyes closed, her defined eyebrows made her look all the more enchanting and ravishing. A girl like this inspired few improper thoughts. Instead, her delicate appearance combined with the wheelchair only increased one's desire to protect her. On the night of Bo City's destruction, Mo Fan had promised her that if she couldn't walk, he would give her a pair of wings. Magical equipment in the form of wings did exist, but their price was something a commoner couldn't afford even in several lifetimes. In the past, fulfilling this wish would have been impossible for Mo Fan. But now, he held unlimited potential. He would grow stronger and wealthier. One day, he would personally gift her a pair of beautiful wings, allowing her to experience freedom, the wind in her hair, and the clouds beneath her feet. Mo Fan didn't disturb her. The joy of his dual element awakening had now settled into something deeper, an unlimited expectation and thirst for the future, a confidence that he could control everything around him, and a fierce flame of power burning in his heart. After returning to his own room, Mo Fan didn't want to waste a single second. Awakening 4 elements didn't mean he was already stronger, it meant that with effort, he had far more room to improve. He needed to invest even more time into cultivation now, to practice controlling more elemental stars, and to spend more resources. Thankfully, the little loach pendant provided him with great assistance. The truth was, most people couldn't even cultivate one element's magic to a high level. How could they possibly have time to meditate on others? Mo Fan, aiming to raise all 4 of his elements, would need an immense amount of time. With the nourishment of the little loach pendant, he could cultivate day and night without fatigue. He simply sat in his room, eyes closed, spending each day like this. The waters of the underground holy spring had been absorbed by the little loach pendant. While it couldn't match the spring's original effect, it still doubled his meditation speed. A common grade Stardust magic tool increased cultivation speed by roughly 20%. A spirit grade Stardust magic tool increased cultivation speed by roughly 40%. The little loach pendant, having absorbed the underground holy spring, had evolved beyond Mo Fan's ability to judge its grade. But whenever he entered meditation, he could now achieve twice the results with half the effort, double what it had been before. This steady, significant boost wasn't due to any special cultivation talent of his own. It was simply that he could meditate for much longer periods, and even outside meditation, the pendant's nourishing effect continued to work. Quietly but constantly, it pushed his cultivation forward. The effects of his meditation varied daily. Even if his natural talent was average, with the little loach pendant's help, he could still outpace his peers by many levels. Mo Fan had fully organized his schedule. After 3 months of continuous cultivation, he was pleasantly surprised. His shadow element Stardust had reached a level that had taken him a full year to achieve with fire and lightning. The increase in speed was like a rocket. Even he found it hard to believe. It seems that after reaching the intermediate level, Stardust becomes familiar territory for magicians with a nebula. So, the growth rate is much faster than before, Mo Fan mused. For most people, the average cultivation time for one element was roughly a day. With the little loach pendant's nourishment, his speed was about 2.5 times faster. Logically, 3 months at this speed was equivalent to just over half a year's cultivation. But in practice, it felt more like a whole year. If this were the annual examination, he could easily score an S. The only explanation was that his meditation efficiency had increased by about 50% since becoming an intermediate mage. Because he had to carefully maintain his nebula level fire and lightning elements, it made caring for his Stardust level shadow and summoning elements much easier. It was like being a father who had already raised 2 children to the age of 10. Handling the third and fourth was far simpler. His management was smooth, making him obedient and easy to control. The Shadow Stardust and Summoning Stardust had already reached the point where he could cast their spells. Only then did Mo Fan begin connecting the Shadow Stars. The Star Path was something he was already skilled in. Even though the Shadow and Summoning Stardust required him to start from scratch, he coaxed the Proud Stars into obedience with practiced ease. Cultivating the Shadow and Summoning elements was much smoother than fire and lightning had been. He avoided detours, never lost confidence, and focused on control first. Most magicians, after connecting 7 stars, would rush to cast spells and devote their time to mastering that magic. But with his limited time, Mo Fan resisted the temptation. Instead, he focused on strengthening his foundation. When he reached the university, he would have all the time and resources to practice. Here in the mountains, there were no distractions, and no beautiful ladies to sneak peeks at. Chapter end. Please guys, like, comment, share, and subscribe.